have any or speak out to us during the webinar. Okay, can you maybe mention in the chat or where are you from, what's your background, and what's your experience with consulting, or what's your objectives for now? I will also, in the meanwhile, post the link to our YouTube translation so that we feel free to follow us also there. And by the way, let me maybe briefly introduce myself. My name is Andrei Homlenko. I'm the CEO of Consulting Masters. Our company has already helped 601 person to get into the leading consulting firms. We do help with career coaching along the entire application process. Basically starting from polishing your application documents, CV, cover letter, helping you to create application roadmaps, helping you with connections to get recommendations and referrals in order to help you to receive your interview invites and actually apply to the consulting companies. And then, of course, helping you and other candidates in your intensive preparation for the consulting interviews, to the personal fit parts, to the case interview part, etc. And then consequently helping you to pass all the interview rounds from the first one with HR screening up to the last one with a partner and signing the contract, negotiating it, receiving better salaries, better conditions, and consequently helping you also to get ready for the first 100 days in consulting and become a star consultant. So that's in the nutshell what we do. I'm representing our expert team. We work also with other coaches, and all of us have been working in consulting. So we combine more than 25 years of work experience in consulting with McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Roland Berger, Strategy, and other companies in our team. And this is kind of the expertise that we are sharing with our clients and with you today. I also see here the first message from Jamie. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie. I'm recent MBA grad, Seattle, former naval officer, pilot. I'm new to the consulting world, but ready to learn. Okay, very good. Cool. Feel free to write a brief message about you in the chat so that we can get to know each other a little bit better. And please also turn on your cameras because today we're going to solve the very interactive case. By the way, please also mention in the chat whether you have ever solved a case or whether any one of you would like to volunteer to solve a case together with me today. And the next one is Azan Ahmed. Hi, it's Azan Ahmed, master students at TU Berlin, eager to explore consultancy. All right, cool, very cool. So Anastasia will now also share the links to our website and to our YouTube channel, as well as to my personal social media. Feel free to subscribe, to follow us over there. I would definitely recommend you to visit our website on the one side, consulting-masters.com, to find out more about us and our services and what we do, as well as to subscribe to YouTube channel, especially if you're watching this video online right now. Put it a like, leave a comment, or maybe dislike if you don't like the comment what we do. Give us the feedback, your questions, and feel free to watch other useful content that we have produced over the last 3 years. and put online for you. Yeah, as well as keep in touch with me and with Consulting Masters team through our social media, whether on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or other social media format for you. Okay, so the plan for today is very simple. I have prepared a case which was given usually during the final interview rounds. And it is a very practical one. Something similar, a very similar case has been used by companies like McKinsey and Oliver Wyman in one of their offices. And it was given already twice to my mentees in the past. Very similar to this one. So I want to give this to you and I want to solve this with you. So please turn on your cameras, raise your hands, and we can basically go with you step by step through that case. By the way, can you please identify in the chat, just saying yes, whether or no, whether you have already solved any cases in the past, whether you have prior experience with the case solving, or whether it's going to be your first one.
Yes, we have one person who already solved the case. Who else?
Yes, so Melcher solved it. JP, not yet. Vanessa, hi, it's Vanessa Caruso. Cases are new to me. This will be a first. Okay. Simra Jaggi, no. Sanan, no. Okay. Nevertheless, don't be shy. I really want to help you to solve this case and basically help you to go through the entire process. Mustafa Askarich, yes. Okay. All right. Perfect. So let's go through that process one by one. In order to start it, could you please take a piece of paper and a pen for you in order to have a realistic setting? Just do this right now. Okay? Can you please put in the chat whether you are ready? Say yes. So just confirm that you have it. Richard is ready. Okay. Who else is ready?
Melchior, Jamie is ready. Yes. Melchior, yeah.
Yeah. Guys, and by the way, please turn on your cameras. So in order to make this a productive one. Okay, good. Now, you have this piece of paper. You turn it into the quadrant. And you divide this piece of paper into 4 quadrants. Okay. So one will be the upper right one. Please write here case question or prompt and clarifying questions. Just simply write it for you. In the first upper right quadrant. So in this quadrant, you will write down now the case prompt, which I will give to you. You will repeat with an interviewer. You will basically, this is for your information. Then the second quadrant, please write here approach. So here you will put your approach to this case, your logic, how to solve the case question. Okay.
Please come back again from the first quadrant.
So the first one is the case prompt. The second one is approach, how to solve the case. Richard, are you with me?
Thank you.
Okay. Everyone else following, just say yes or no. Okay, perfect. All right. Then the third one is analysis. It's the biggest one in terms of size or in terms of space, basically. And the last one is recommendation. So in the analysis, you will do your analysis following the logic from the approach. And in the recommendation, you can, whenever during analysis, you find out something useful, which you can use later to give the final recommendation in the case, then you can write it down over there. Okay, good. So, and then you ready with 4 quadrants right now? So, could you please raise the hands, those people who would like to be volunteers to solve the case with me? I'm an interviewer and you can play a role of the candidate if it was a real interview. So I need 1, 2, maybe 3 volunteers, depending whom we have here. So don't be shy. I'm not biting, at least right now, and not online. So yeah, feel free to raise your hands. Okay, Mustafa, the one, maybe anyone else, a young lady, don't be shy. Yeah. Who else? Please raise the hand. And by the way, please turn on your cameras. Melcher is the second one, and maybe one more.
Excuse me, I will rejoin with my laptop then. I rejoin with my laptop then because I'm currently joining with my cell phone. I think it's easier to join with laptop.
Yeah, feel free to rejoin which works for you, but anyway, please turn on your cameras, everyone, so that we have an interactive discussion. All right, and if you are not volunteering, nevertheless, try to solve this case together with us, okay? So, guys, are you ready? Yes or no? Okay, good to go. All right, perfect. So now I, as an interviewer, give you the case. Your first task is to write it down. And your second task is to repeat it to me. So like, how did you understand it? But don't reread it, just try to paraphrase it with your own words, how you understood this. And then please ask me the clarifying questions. Like, what kind of clarifying questions would you need to ask the interviewer if it was a real one in order to solve this case? Okay, so number 1, write the case prompt. Number 2, repeat or paraphrase the case to the interviewer. Number 3, ask 2 to 4 clarifying questions, which will help you to better understand initial situation and objectives of the case. Okay, good. Are you with me, guys? Just knock. Okay, so then let's gonna start. Okay, so my question to you today is, probably you have watched how do you call it? You have watched FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Maybe some of you are fans of football, or at least you have heard about it. So I have a question which is a little bit related to that. Let's put ourselves about to Qatar for now. And I would like to know, how would you estimate what were the revenues of Apple from all Apple iPhone models sold in Qatar in fourth quarter 2022. So in last quarter of the last year. How would you estimate the revenues which Apple made with all its iPhone models in Qatar in the last quarter 2022? So who would like to paraphrase the case prompt to me and ask me a few clarifying questions?
I can start.
Yes, Mustafa, go ahead.
So the question is, how can we estimate the revenue of Apple from all Apple sold in Qatar in last in last quarter of last year? Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
About clarifying, I have some questions about clarifying questions. So the revenue that we are talking about is just from phones that are sold, not the application, right?
Yes, we are primarily talking about the last 3 iPhone models which are currently on the market.
Then 3 iPhone models. And the next question is that, is it the number of phones that are used in Qatar, or to any of visitors who are visiting Qatar that would be counted too?
Yes,
I mean,
it's a good question. We are just talking about sales
or all over the world.
Yes, we are talking about the sales of latest 3 iPhone models, and those sales could have been done to residents and visitors of Qatar in the last quarter of 2022. Yes, it's a good point.
And the last question is that, does it should we consider the second-hand receipts of items, or just the new sales?
Only new sales. Okay. Does anyone else has other clarifying questions which he or she wants to ask?
We can raise hand, Aniket.
Yeah, Aniket, please also turn on your camera. And sound would be also nice.
Yeah, sorry. So first of all, I would like to understand the market volume of Qatar and its attractiveness, how big the market is in Qatar for phones, to understand the share of Apple's phone in Qatar.
You are consultant. That's why I'm asking you.
So my question here is
Aniket, what's your clarifying questions that you have?
The question I will ask you is to understand what is the volume of handsets that have been sold in that duration, the total handset and the market.
Very good question. That's why I'm asking you and paying you money for this advice.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So you see, well, you see, Aniket, that's what consultants are hired for. If you come up with these kind of questions to the real interview, the interview will not last very long in your case.
Right.
So, Melchior, which other clarifying questions do you have?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Can you hear me all right? Just to start. Okay. So just to clarify, in terms of revenues, you want overall revenues, or do you want a breakdown of net profits?
I want, first of all, revenues or sales, basically, in million or in billion US dollars, basically in USD.
USD? Okay.
By the way, it would have been a very good question from your side if you would have asked me, like, what is the entity in which I show basically find out the total revenues. Are we talking about US dollars, or are we talking about local currency, or are we talking about number of iPhones sold, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, that was actually going to be
that should
question,
have been your one of the clarifying questions that I was looking for.
Yeah,
okay.
that was going to be my next one, but I have a couple more if
Yeah,
that's okay.
okay, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The question asked before was about market share, but do you have an estimated number of units sold during the 2022 period?
That's actually what I would like you to do.
Okay.
That was
what
part
is
of my question.
Yeah, no, thank you. What's the population of Qatar?
Population of Qatar is about 2.5 million people.
Do you have any statistics on penetration of digital technology in Qatar?
Yes, I do. I can share some of the data with you as we go through the case.
Okay, so that would be to the further along in the case, or should I ask a few more clarifying questions?
Further in the case.
Okay, sounds good. And then I have a few more, or should I stop?
In the real life, you would stop, but now you can still ask one or two in the car.
Okay, I can stop if you want me to.
Okay, good. So guys, now the next job for you. So you know now the case question. You have received your clarifying questions right now. Now, the next logical step as you go through the case would be actually to work on your approach. So you ask the interviewer to give you a moment of time to structure your thoughts. And what I'm talking about in approach is your logic, like what should be the, how should the approach look like? What are the things that you want to analyze, or how should specifically the formula look like? How would you come up with that number? So I'm now currently just interested in your approach. I'm not interested in your numbers. I'm not interested in calculations. I'm just interested to find out, how do you want to structure it? So if you want to assess the market, how you want to assess it? What would you like to look at? What are the components, for example, in the market? How would you come up to the final number? Numbers I can give you maybe later, or we can make assumptions together. But what would be the underlying logic? So I give you 1 or 1.5 minutes, so you don't have not more than 90 seconds. But then please start working right now on your approach, and I will ask those who have it to present it to me. So take your time right now. You have 80 seconds left. Okay, time is out. Who is ready to present the approach? Please raise your hands. Otherwise, we will not go further. Yes, Mustafa, please show your piece of paper. You can show it right now, like this, and
Yeah.
show me what do you have in the field called approach.
Okay, this is my approach. I don't know
And
if
you remember,
see
you're
it.
explaining this to the interviewer who is assessing you, whether you will get the job at McKinsey or not.
Okay, I don't know if you can see it or not.
Just explain this to me.
Okay.
Let's imagine I can see it.
Okay. So to solve this problem, I want to find out first the main drivers of the market in the last quarter of last year for the selling of new 3 iPhone, the last new 3 iPhones. The main drivers in my side of view is mainly the market size, the market attraction, and the competitors of cell phone industry, to be on so to say. And for this reason, I have considered, I start my analyzing my drivers with market attraction. For the market attraction, I put 2 main drivers, mainly market size and market growth due to FIFA World Cup that has affected the market. And for the competitors, I would consider 1 main competitor, namely Samsung. And the second category for me, I mean, beside iPhone, is other producer of cell phone because of their share in the market. So starting from market size, I need to know the level of to which that's the digitalization is penetrated through residents, and also
what do you mean as a digitization penetrated?
I mean the trends that people try new iPhone or new cell phones, or they want to be up to date about digital devices.
Do you have a cell phone?
Yes, I have a cell phone.
Do you think other people have a cell phone?
Everyone has a cell phone. It's possible that everyone.
So then, what exactly do you mean?
it is not a trend. I mean, this is not a trend in every country or in every population that they will change their cell phone every day with new brands. And they perhaps someone this should be considered that the level of the to which level people want to be updated in terms of using digital devices like cell phones.
Okay, well, maybe just to give you a short background. So Qatar is considered to be one of the richest countries in the world, considering the GDP per capita. So it
Yes.
probably has one of it's among top 5 or top 7 countries considering GDP, because it has vast natural resources, predominantly gas and oil, which is exported worldwide, and relatively small population. So it has a very rich local population. It has lots of expats, and their salaries are all above average in the world comparison, and people are looking for the latest technologies, so they are considered to be early adopters, and they are less price sensitive.
Okay, in that case,
good. Mustafa, thanks, but I want to give the chance to the next candidate. Afterwards, I can give you the feedback.
No worries.
Okay, good. Azan, you're the next one who raised the hand.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. So my approach towards solving this case study would be first to understand what is the GDP per capita in Qatar, just to understand that how much the masses earn in general. And after that, I would like to understand, for example, certain drivers. Of course, what is the market size and what is the penetration from Apple in the past years in Qatar and in Middle East in general, because a lot of visitors in Qatar were also from the neighboring rich countries such as Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, or UAE. And after that, I would like to understand if Apple have offered any tax concessions in Middle East or in Qatar specifically regarding the selling of their iPhones. Like, for example, in EU, we have to pay some extra taxes to buy an iPhone. So I want to understand how does it go in Qatar? And also if Apple has promoted any sponsorships during the World Cup, or what was their strategy in general coming this mega event. After that, I would also like to understand what have been any previous experiences of theirs, for example, in any global event they have hosted in Qatar, or maybe.
Okay, all right, good. Guys, look, the structure of Mustafa and Azan are not up to the point. Can you, Azan, please remind me, what was the case question?
The case question was to kind of identify the number of phones or the revenue Apple has generated in the last quarter of the year by selling of iPhones.
Okay, so I need a specific number for you, a quantifiable one. I don't know. So, and how does your structure, Mustafa and Azan, helps me to find it out? It doesn't. It's very vague. So in fact, I need a formula where A multiply B plus C multiply D is equal to XYZ. Something like this. And what you guys are proposing is very vague. So with your structure and with your logic, I will not be able to find it out. In fact, I really want you to focus just on the market size. So please tell me, what is market size basically, or what are the revenues? Revenues is P times Q, so price times quantity. So basically, how do you assess the quantity and how do you estimate the price? If we're talking about the market, what are the market segments, and how many cell phones are sold to every segment, how to assess this. This is what we are looking for. So who has a structure that could help to answer these questions? Yes, Melcher?
I'll take my best crack at it. For my approach, I have three main categories of information that I would want to process in order to get to that final equation, as you mentioned, of price times quantity to fully understand what the revenue is. The first section would be market details. So understanding what the market share of Apple is within the Qatar space, as well as who the competitors are, as well as in Q4, some of the others hinted at this, if there are any drivers that possibly increased the market share or affected the quantity of Apple products that were sold. The second piece of second category of information I would like to delve into is contextual to Qatar. So you've already answered some information, such as Qatar being fairly high in terms of digital rate, as well as a small population of 2.5 million. What I would further want to understand is the penetration of digital products across the entire population, if it's segmented by age, and if there is a segmentation based off of age for digital products, to come to a final understanding of how many individuals inside of the Qatari population would be open to purchasing a new phone. And then further would want to understand the number of individuals who would be eligible to purchase new phones based off of the type of phone that they currently have. So I assume, based off of the information that you supplied, that many individuals do have phones, but want to further segment, not only based off age, but based off of willingness to purchase a new phone, specifically within that 3 model category that you listed. That leads me to the last category I have of information I would want to process from an Apple retail perspective. The first one would very evidently be, what is the price point? And are there different price points for the 3 different models that you referenced? The second would be, what are the locations of Apple in the Qatari space? Are we talking about internet, brick and mortar stores? How are we selling these products and where? And then the last question from a retail perspective is the amount of tourists during the Q4 period, in order to determine if there was a higher percentage of individuals open to purchasing phones based off of the inflow of individuals during the FIFA World Cup. And then
Okay, that already sounds better. Still not 100% there, but already quite a few very good components where to build in. So, Sanan, let's give you the last try.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my approach is to estimate the population of Qatar first, like what percentage of the population is Apple user. And
Finally.
since it's a rich country, so I would assume that 90 to 100, almost 100% would be inclined to buying new products.
Don't work with numbers now. Just tell me the logic.
Okay. And in addition to that, I would add the percentage of tourists entering Qatar in the last quarter that would be inclined on buying new iPhone products, because some of them might have cheaper rates or cheaper taxes in their own countries, so they might not be inclined in buying that. So I think that would give me a good estimate of the number of devices sold. And like you said, for the revenue, we use P.Q, and for the price, we can find the taxes in Qatar, and we can calculate revenue that way.
Okay, perfect. All right, good. So not a bad start, I would say, Sanan, for you. But if you go deeper into that in the last part of your structure, it could still be improved. So basically, guys, you have in front of you your question. So as I told you, like, what is the How would you estimate the number of sales, like either of physical iPhones or of revenues generated through the sales of iPhone of the last 3 models in the last quarter 2022 in Qatar? So in order to find out this, if we take purely the market size, so how to estimate the market size? As Sanam already mentioned, so you have several segments. You have on the one side residence itself of Qatar. Second big aspect is visitors, because there is an event and there will be a huge amount of visitors. And the third one, so if we are talking about the market, please don't forget to split it in both B2B and B2C. So there are sales not only to end customers, but there are also sales to businesses. Because iPhones or cell phones could be, or almost every unit could be used also for business reasons as well. Then we start working with basically with the population. So population is you either have it or you ask for this data or you make an assumption. So if you have it or if you ask for data, you will see 2.5 million of local population. Then number of visitors, you have 1.5 million of visitors alone for the event. So in the last quarter of 2022, the total population of Qatar seems to rise from 2.5 to 4.0 million people. Quite a significant increase, isn't it? Then if we talk about penetration or all of this, what you need to find out is how many cell phones does a person have on average, or how many cell phones are there. So here you can get the statistics, or you can make the assumption that, for example, every person has 1.5 cell phones in Qatar. Out of which 1.0 is, for example, for private reasons, and 0.5 could be cell phones used for business purposes. So that you have then 4 million multiplies 1.5 cell phones per person, you have 6 million cell phones. Then we need to talk about the replacement. So replacement of the cell phones in Qatar, could you either ask for this data or you can make a reasonable assumption. I don't know, some of you will assume that cell phones got replaced every 3 years or every 4 or every 5 years whatsoever. So you either ask for this data or you make your own assumption. Then let's say if it's, for example, I'm just trying to oversimplify it for you so that as many of you understand it, the whole logic, okay? So if we're talking, for example, about 6 million cell phones, which needs to get replaced every 3 years, then we are talking about 2 million 2 million cell phones. Then if that are needed to get replaced this specific year. Then if we go further, then we're talking, let's say, about what is the market share of Apple. We can basically, again, either ask for this data or assume it, that let's say it is about 20% of the market are dominated by Apple. So out of 2 million of newly replaced cell phones times 20% will give you 0.4 million cell phones. And you need to take into account that we're talking about annual. So we divide it into 4 quarters. You need to find out, like, okay, out of 0.4, how many are sold in this last quarter compared to the other quarters. Are you still with me, guys? Please knock, say yes or say no. Just put in the chat. Okay, I see knocking, so I hope that you are still following me. Okay, so since it's FIFA championship, since it's basically Christmas period plus Black Friday plus Thanksgiving plus whatsoever. So it's basically holiday and festive season, which means that most of the presents are being made exactly in this period of time. And then you can ask for this data from the interviewer, who will say, yes, roughly half of the sales, of the annual sales of cell phones are taking place in the 4th quarter. So if we're talking about half, which means 0.4 million divided through the half, gives you 0.2 million or 200,000 cell phones. So 200,000 cell phones. And then the price, you either can distribute it into 3 segments, or is there any average price of it? If we assume that there is an average price of a new iPhone at about $100,000 US, just to oversimplify it for you, so that you understand the logic. Then you have 200,000 times 1,000, then you have 200 millions. So basically, in the nutshell, the sales of iPhones that were generated in the last quarter, 2022 in Qatar, will result at somehow about 200 million US dollars. Were you able to follow it? Of course, the case itself in the reality will be much more complicated. The numbers will not be that rough. You would need to work with the precise numbers. You would need to take more specific assumptions. You would need to make your logic a little bit more sophisticated and complex, just to take into account more parameters and more complexity. But since literally 50% of the participants of this webinar for you, it's the very first case, I tried to do all my best to oversimplify it for you, so that you could still follow that logic.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, now we will come to the questions, Mustafa. So this is just an example of how the case could look like, how could the approach look like, and then in the next step, after you presented your case question and your approach, you would need to go through that approach, like from the very first to the very last step, having a very productive discussion with an interviewer, leading this case conversation, and then coming up to the closure of the case at the end of the interview. Then validate your results and present it to the interviewer. Afterwards, after the case has been solved, you can still need to basically ask a few intelligent questions about the interviewer and about the company himself or herself, actually, because you are still in the interview setting format. if it was a real interview with McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Rollenberger, or any other leading consulting company. Okay, now we will also open the Q&A portal so that you can ask your questions, and I will try to provide fast answers to you. And in the meantime, Anastasia will also inform you in the chat that if you want to have a free conversation or free consultation with us, with our experts, feel free to follow the link which will now appear in the chat, where you can discuss with one of our experts your specific situation and develop the roadmap, also together with our help, how you could get into consulting. Okay, I'm now more than happy to answer your questions. So, Mustafa, let's start with you, and all others feel free to click on the calendar link which now appeared in chat and book a free spot for you.
Okay, my question is that introducing the case, you mentioned that it is a case for calculating the revenue for Qatar at the special event of FIFA. But during the case, we simply eliminate any aspects that actually FIFA has on this event, including, I mean, it is, we consider the whole situation as a country that had, instead of 2.5 million population, has 4 million population. And we just simplified everything. We didn't consider any marketing aspects. We didn't consider any other aspects of FIFA actually on this situation, but the population. And the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to FIFA is the market situation, and the market that it's a very good market to sell, and every company try to sell. But even in the terms of the revenue, instead of FIFA, we considered, for example, Black Friday or something like that, which is not relevant to this special case, I would say. So what was the point of mentioning FIFA at the end? I mean, we could consider a country with a good revenue or GDP with 4 million population, and that's it.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. We could have considered the other country, but I simply gave you an example of a case that has been solved by two of my very recent mentees who were applying. One was applying at McKinsey and another one was applying at Oliver Wyman, and a very similar case to that has been given to them. Because the trick is that if we're talking just purely about Qatar or about any other country, you would naturally just talking about the population, but you would completely forget about, first of all, most of the candidates forget about businesses. And in that particular case, most of the candidates also forget about this special event, FIFA, which brought 1.5 additional visitors to the country, which is a game changer. I mean, it literally boosts, it literally almost doubles your revenues because of this event. So, yes. And yes, I was also oversimplifying this case. So we were not taking that many aspects into consideration, because for 50% of the people presented in this webinar, this is their very, very first case that they are solving. So yes, I was literally very simplifying it. But as I mentioned to you earlier, in fact, this case could be way, way more complicated.
Okay.
Okay, good. Jamie, I think you have the next question.
Yeah, so just a little bit of basic structure. I mean, how long in general would you say these take? Because it seems that there is a lot of, back and forth questioning going on. And at what point do you start to annoy your interviewers, or will they just cut you off and say, all right, go with what you have? I mean, because you could ask so many of us. I mean, these folks asked phenomenal questions, and there were, I can tell they could have kept going. So what's any rule of thumb or kind of structure thoughts on at what point you need to start cracking through the process and actually coming up with recommendations by asking 73 questions?
Well, how it usually looks like in the real interview, and that's exactly what we help our clients or our candidates, how we do that coaching. So we play those interview simulations usually in one-on-one setting or in one-to-many settings, also in the form of a webinar. And so you are the candidate, I am the interviewer, let's say. Your job is to keep the case prompt in front of you and always remember what is your final objective. Because for 3 out of 4 persons who presented their case structure at the very beginning, they literally went into the wrong direction. I think the right structure had only Sanan who had something like similar to that. So you need to, first of all, repeat the case prompt. Secondly, you need to exactly clarify what does the interviewer really want from you. Like what is the initial situation and what are the end objectives. So if the interviewer is just purely interested in the specific number, like revenue or amount of sales in quantity, in number of pieces or in the USD, that at the end of the case, you should come up with that very, very specific recommendation. Of course, there are all other different factors, but you need to keep this in mind as you go. Then, in the next step, you need to, after you have asked those 3-4 clarifying questions, you come up with the structure after reflecting for 60 to 90 seconds. That's exactly what we did. And then you present your approach, which should be tailored to solving that specific problem. And then you need to align this approach with an interviewer. So you have another 60 seconds to present it and to agree on this logic with the interviewer. After you both agreed with an interviewer, then you start solving the case. Then you say, okay, so in the first step, I would like to do market analysis, and I want to, I don't know, multiply the population of Qatar with factor X, then with factor Y, then with factor Z. Do we have any data of that? So you start requesting the data. Or if the interviewer says, no, unfortunately, I don't have the data. Can you maybe make your own assumptions? Then you start making your own assumptions. Then you say, okay, let's imagine that as far as I know, the population of this country is about 2 million people. Does that make sense to you? The interviewer says, yes. Then, okay, let's imagine that the factor X is 40%. Does that make sense to you? Yes. Let's imagine that factor Y is about 5%. The interviewer says, why do you think so? I think let's better take 10%. So that's how you come up with the numbers. And then at the very end, It's all about arithmetics and doing some calculations with the numbers that have been decided for. Then you come up with the final number of, I don't know, 200 million, as in our case. And then you need to think, okay, does this number actually make sense? Is it too high, too small? What does my gut feeling tell me about it? And how can I prove it? How can I validate it? And then after you stress test this number, then you come up to the interviewer and says, okay, so based on our analysis and estimation, we came to the conclusion that the roughly estimated sales of iPhones in Qatar in the last quarter were about 200 million US dollars, based on the assumption that we had 2.5 million population, 1.5 million visitors, and blah, 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 blah. Does this make sense to you? That's what you ask the interviewer. And then the interviewer said, yeah, sounds reasonable. Thank you very much, Jay. Do you have any questions to me before we leave our interview? And that's what the interviewer says when the case is finished. And then when you still have 5 to 7 minutes time to ask your questions to the interviewer, either about himself, herself, or about the company itself. So does this guy, what I explained to you right now, does this make sense to you? Are you able to get the idea how does the real consulting interview looks like?
Yes. How much, one more question, is just a short one. In that analysis, are you talking through that process with them? Or are you taking, hey, can I have a couple minutes, and you go through it yourself and then present it? Or is it as you Q&A, then you come up with that number on the spot? Or is it more of a presentation?
Jamie, you need to take your time at the very beginning to formulate the structure or your approach, how you're going to solve it. And then after you present your approach, you start solving this together with an interviewer. So then it becomes really interactive. It's a dialogue. It's not a monologue. It's not that you are saying, okay, let me take another 2 minutes and then I come up with a final number with you. But for instance, you say, okay, let's talk about factor 1. Do we have any data on this, or do you want me to do the assumptions? Then, okay, you generate this data, or you generate the assumption. Then you come up with the next factor, then with the next, and with after next, and so on and so on. Then you do the calculations. Then you say, okay, 20% out of 4 million is 0.8. Multiplies 2 gives me 1.6, divides through 4 gives me 0.4. So you walk the interviewer through every step in your calculations. As you see, it's more like a dialogue. It's more an involving one. Feel free to book a first consultation with us or the first coaching to see how the real consulting interview looks like. That's the whole advantage of the coaching, that you can get to know about the whole process way more in advance, and through this get better prepared to the actual interview before it actually happens. Because if you come unprepared to the interview, it's waste of your time, it's waste of the time of the interviewer. You will never pass it. In truth, actually 9 out of 10 people who got invited to the interviews will not pass it, because you really need to become an outstanding candidate. And this requires a lot of preparation, and that's exactly what we help people to do. So I hope I was able to answer your question. I think there is another question from Aniket Das in the chat. On opting the course, how long do you think would it take for a candidate to master these case studies based interviews and its strategies, considering the candidate has no prior exposure to consultancies? Well, Aniket, thanks for this question. It's basically, I would say on average, it requires between 6 weeks to 4 months for a candidate, depending on several factors. First of all, amount of time and commitment that you're ready to spend, because some people work and they can only spend 1, 2, or 3 or 4 hours in a week. Other people go like full time, all in. It of course requires on your based on your previous background. Like some are more related to the economy and at least have some basic concepts. Other needs to start from the scratch, and it also it deeply depends on your IQ. So basically on your ability to learn, because some people are fast learners, other people are slow learners. I mean, in some of the cases, I had a person, I helped from my personal experience. I helped one person who was in the Navy. I think he was a former Navy SEAL, and he got an offer at BCG after 15 sessions, which we did with him within 7 or 8 days. So like within a little bit more than 1 week, let's say less than 10 days, he went from absolutely 0 to 100. But he was extremely hardworking. He was extremely dedicated. This 1 week or 8 or 7 days, he did nothing else than casing, nothing else than interview preparation. He was just purely focused on this, and he was so eager, and he was very smart. So through this commitment and hard work, we helped him to make this difference. And then he was, top 1%. I mean, he surprised all the interviewers because no one expected from a person with completely different backgrounds. I mean, we helped former opera singers, we helped former Olympic champions, we helped former Navy SEALs, we helped people with very extraordinary backgrounds to get into consulting who would otherwise have no chances. So it's all very individual, and I would be able to tell you more only after we start working together, after we start getting to know each other, because every person is individual. Nevertheless, our courses that we also do have online, Anastasia will now share the links. Feel free to check our website and our video courses that we do have online through the website. They comprise all this knowledge, all these basics to you in a very suitable format. So after you purchase them, you start getting your competitive edge because you will understand the whole logic behind it. So let's imagine I just gave you now literally, I would say maybe 1% of the iceberg, of the top of the iceberg. Like I just tried to show you to simulate the interview. But let's imagine that you basically start understanding what's happening, what's going on. How does McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Roland Berger, or any other leading consulting company works internally? How do they recruit candidates? What are their success criteria? What is the logic? What is their approach? So if the interviewer is speaking to you as a candidate, what is he looking for when he's selecting the right person? And knowing all of this will help you to get ready even better for your interview, which will hopefully then result in you becoming our mentee 602, 603, or whatsoever, who got the offer and made it to consulting.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Do we have any more questions, Anastasia?
I don't see you raise hands. No questions in the chat and no questions on YouTube. So I think no. Maybe guys, you have.
Jamie, are you still raising your hands or no? Okay, guys, then thank you very much for being with us online. Get you a chance, book a free call with one of our experts in the team, and let your journey into consulting begin. And we, on behalf of Consulting Masters, would be very happy to accompany you. Feel free to leave also all your comments behind the videos on YouTube or in social media. Share it with your friends. There will be the recordings if you found it useful. Leave your comments whether you liked it or not. Thank you very much, and all the very best to you.
Bye. Have a nice day.